Since 2023, I've had three cancer diagnoses. The first was neuroendocrine carcinoma, rare form of cancer. And it was rare because I had a tumor that was sitting kind of in the orbit area of my nose between my eyes, and it started to touch my brain. 6 months later, after I was cleared from that cancer, I got HER2 positive breast cancer. Initially sat down, cried like, you have got to be kidding me. This is not possible. Like, I just got through stage 4 neuroendocrine carcinoma and now I have breast cancer. And so I thought, okay, this is absolutely it. I'm good. I survived 2 cancers. And then my ENT doctor calls me and is like, I think we have a recurrence. That just pretty much did it for me. At that moment, I was devastated, terrified. I initially thought I had a sinus infection just because I had a lot of mucus. Went to the doctor. Doctor tried, my primary care physician tried 2 different antibiotics. Neither worked. And then I realized that I had lost my sense of smell. I kept thinking that something was wrong with the products I was buying. Like, why does this not smell? And then I asked my daughter, like, can you smell this? And she said, yeah, this is, what it smells like. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't smell anything. I was referred to an ENT doctor who did a biopsy. And I could just tell when he was doing the biopsy, my heart just dropped. I could just see it in his face. It took probably about 2.5 weeks because of the fact that it's rare. They had to send it, I think, to 2 different pathologists. I got the call from my ENT doctor, and he said, you have neuroendocrine carcinoma. I don't know how to treat this. It's rare, so I'm going to refer you to some doctors at UC Health in Denver. I was living in Denver at the time. Everything was just blurred. I felt like, one, I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is not possible. Like, I'm a healthy person. I go to the gym. Like, how is it possible that I got a rare form of cancer? Like, how does this happen? In disbelief, when I got off the phone with my ENT doctor, literally just sat and stared into space for a minute. And then I cried. And then I reached out to my daughter and told her, and then my brother, um, uh, and I was terrified. And then I went through a kind of a phase of, I'm not doing chemo and I'm not doing radiation and I'm not going to go through this. And I was pretty certain I was going to die. It was stage 4. Just mortified. They gave me kind of 2 options, and that I could do surgery and then chemo or vice versa, to shrink the tumor. And then after the tumor was dissolved in size, then they could do surgery. He told me that I would be doing 6 months, 4 months of that were chemo, and then the last 2 months were chemo and radiation therapy. So when I left after meeting with both of them, I literally just had to stand and not move. And I was looking out a window out of the hospital and just I couldn't say anything. I couldn't I couldn't move. I felt like I literally was going to drop. So I just stood there for a little while and tried to contain myself, walked to the car in tears, had to sit in the car for a little bit before I left to go home. Like, how could I possibly survive this? And the chemo was a combination of cisplatin and etoposide. Very strong. I would do that every time I went to get my chemo treatments. I would usually be pretty knocked out for about 7 days after. The radiation, when I started that, because of where the tumor was, I actually also had a lymph node that was slightly infected. So the radiation was targeting this area. For about 2 months, I completely lost my sense of taste. I couldn't taste anything, so I was drinking shakes just to try to keep myself from losing weight. But at the end of it, I lost about 30 pounds. And they foresaw that surgery would not be needed because the chemo and the radiation combined would remove it, which it did. I waited to ring the bell until my radiation was done, and it was super emotional. My brother and my niece came. My daughter was on FaceTime because she lives here in Maryland, and all of the staff, came out and were clapping for me. I cried, um, and just was, s- in disbelief that I was at that point. I didn't think I would make it. So, I had kind of gotten through all of this. In June of 24, I did an MRI and they said, okay, it's gone. There's no evidence of cancer. I thought, great. But they said, you haven't done a mammogram, during this treatment time. It's been a while since you've done one, which it was. So they were like, we need to make sure you're doing all of your follow-ups regularly. So I did a mammogram. It was a very, very small tumor, initially DCIS. I hope I'm saying that correctly, in the right breast. And they thought they were going to be able to just take that out and it not be an issue. But when they took it out and biopsied it, they discovered that it was this HER2 breast cancer. So I had the removal from the breast, and then they also had to remove in a second surgery some of my lymph nodes under my arm, just to ensure that the cancer hadn't spread, which it didn't. I got the call. My daughter was visiting me in Denver, and I had decided at that point that I was going to move here to Maryland to be closer to her. And so she was out there helping me pack. Initially sat down, cried like, you have got to be kidding me. This is not possible. Like, I just got through stage 4 neuroendocrine carcinoma and now I have breast cancer. Like, can I have a little bit of, time cancer free? And for a moment I was like, I can't move. This is too much. And then something just clicked in me and I was like, you know what? I just kind of changed the narrative. I was like, I just beat stage 4 cancer. This is stage 1A and I will beat it. And I just changed the narrative because it kind of came from a little bit of anger because I was like, come on. But I just, instead of feeling sorry for myself and saying, oh, I'm not going to move and I'm not going to continue on with the things I'm trying to do, I was like, forget this. I'm not going to let cancer run my life. When I got my first cancer diagnosis, my mom had a heart attack about 6 months prior. When I got my cancer diagnosis, I did not tell her or my dad initially because I thought, oh my God, if I tell them that I have stage 4 cancer, I'm going to put my mom back in the hospital. Like, she's just barely recovering. I made a decision just to tell my daughter and my brother and a few close friends. It's really difficult. I kind of wish I would have just told her. If it were the other way around and were my daughter, I would want to know, regardless of what I had been through. I do give myself a little bit of grace because I know I was protecting her, but it's so important to have that family support and have those people in your corner. It's, they're the ones that are going to be feeding you that positive energy and they're going to be the ones nurturing you. So I had to go through a year of chemo treatment, and then I believe it was the last 4 months of that year were a targeted treatment called Hylecta. which was just an injection. Finished that treatment February of this year. And so I thought, okay, this is absolutely it. I'm good. I survived 2 cancers. And then my ENT doctor calls me and is like, I think we have a recurrence. That just pretty much did it for me. At that moment, I was devastated, terrified. They recommended that I do surgery. At one point, they told me that there was a high probability that I would lose my left eye, um, which devastated me, almost couldn't stand. And then I started doing a little bit more research and trying to understand the different processes. I realized that if I didn't want them to remove my eye, I could tell them that. I could tell them to continue with the surgery, but I don't want you removing my eye. They did also tell me that if they couldn't take the tumor out endoscopically, that they would have to either make an incision above my eye or do a transcranial incision. And that completely freaked me out as well. Okay, we can go ahead with the surgery. If you got to make an incision above the eye, transcranial, go for it. But I want to keep my eye. On March 24th, I went into surgery 12 hours, and they were able to remove the tumor endoscopically, totally endoscopically. Saw that there was a lot of deterioration in this area from the chemo and radiation I had received previously. And so they repaired the tissue in my left nostril. They repaired the skull base in this area. And then they also took some tissue from my stomach and repaired the dura, which had also been damaged. And then I was in ICU for 7 days. And now I am actually, as of today, I had an MRI, my first MRI since March 24th, my surgery on Tuesday, June 16th. I'm still waiting for the results. They are apparently short-staffed with radiologists, and have been really stressed out about those results, but trying to manifest some positivity. I think one thing I learned through all of these cancer diagnoses was that I had a lot of inner strength that I never thought I had. I always kind of, in a way, viewed myself as very emotionally fragile. Now I feel like I'm very balanced, and I take the time to, exercise gratitude in any way that I can. And so that's a big part of what I do between, the scans. I have to do scans now every 3 months, MRI and PT scan. I really just try to manifest, even speaking it, that I'm going to be okay. I have survived 3 cancers. I am thriving. I'm going to the gym. I'm able to experience nature. I'm able to, experience my family. My daughter and her husband are expecting a baby in a couple of weeks. So I'm going to meet my granddaughter. So there's all of these wins, even though it's been a traumatic 3 years. There's all of these wins and all of these things in my life that that I took for granted and that I am now incredibly grateful for. It's really important for me to live life to the fullest and exercise gratitude every single day. When I get up in the morning, I am usually thanking the universe for another day, for the sun, for the rain, for the snow, whatever is happening, for my family, for my doctors, for the chemo, for the radiation. Even though it was awful, I'm here, because of those treatments, and that's incredibly important to me. I have little reminders on my phone that come up 3 times a day that say lead with love. So I'm focused on making sure that I'm exuding that and lifting my energy frequency. Um, so that's where I'm at now, and I'm enjoying every minute, every day. You can survive, and you're stronger than you think.